I'm going to show you how to make the redneck steak. Is it a party trick or does it really work? Let's find out.
A big thanks to Shadow Chef for sponsoring this episode.
Yeah, this is one of the tools that we're going to need to make the redneck steak. This is what you call a Dutch spade, and it basically represents the redneck version of cooking a steak. Now, of course, I don't mean to insult anyone, and that's why we call it the redneck steak. I don't think this steak is for rednecks. Why am I going woke on this? I don't care. It's called the redneck steak. Let's make it, and it's cool. And now I know it's gonna be tasty. Did you see my steak? Look, that's my steak. Look at how beautiful it looks. So delicious, such beautiful meat, great intramuscular fat. No matter what you do with this steak, it's going to turn out delicious. That's why it's perfect for the redneck version of it. I can't cook a steak on this shovel like it is right now. There's a protective layer on the outside of the shovel, which we're gonna burn off. Of course, I'll be building my fire on the Shadow Chef Boma. And the first thing that I'm gonna do is make some kindle. And then I'm gonna place them on, stack them up, and light them up. I'm going to let the kindle burn down and then place on 2 large blocks of beech wood, which is a harder kind of wood that will create beautiful embers. Now I got myself a nice hot fire. And that's going to be more than enough heat to melt down that protective layer and burn it off so we have bare steel left. That's it. Now we wait. Normally bare steel would just get rusty and wouldn't be any good for if you want to use the shovel. But for cooking, we want bare steel. Just like this plate right here on the Shadow Chef. My shovel is now up to temperature. It's smoking hot. It's time to season it. I'm just going to treat it like any cooking surface made out of metal. I want a nice seasoning on it so it's non-stick, it's nice and clean, and it's ready for my delicious steak. So I'm going to drizzle on a little bit of olive oil. You see how hot that is? Then I'm going to brush it in with a cloth, wait until it starts smoking, and then just let the oil burn off and turn into proper seasoning. That will make this shovel non-stick. Of course, you got to do this a couple of times. 2 to 3 times will get the job done. Now you can see the difference from the shiny part like we had right here, where it's still covered in that protective layer, and here where we have a well-seasoned cooking surface. This is now ready to cook steak on. First, we're gonna do a sear on this steak, and then we're gonna slow cook it. To get that good sear, we need that to be extremely hot, so we get a beautiful crust. I'm not talking about red glowing hot, I'm talking about a nice hot cooking surface. And therefore I'm going to put the shovel over the direct coals for a few minutes just to let it warm up, and then the steak goes on. Let's take a quick peek. Whoa! It is a hot shovel, but that steak, man, look at it building up a crust. Starting to look good. Flip it around, make sure that we hit all the hot spots. Let that Maillard effect do its job. Oh, that is a good looking steak. Really, really beautiful. Let's flip this around. Start cooking the other side and just take a look at that spade. See the oil there? That's all beef tallow. That fat's rendering down onto the shovel, creating loads and loads of flavor. And that's why I love this technique so much. Once we build up a beautiful crust on that steak and it's super crunchy, it's time to take it off the shovel and place it on a cold part of the barbecue. Like a medium warm where it can just gently get up to temperature. And in the meantime, we're gonna work on the rest of the ingredients for this cook. I'm gonna take a whole red onion, cut it in half, peel it, and then dice it up. I want nice fine bits. Then I'm going to take a whole bulb of garlic, and this is fresh garlic, so I don't need it peeled. All I need to do is take off the cap, take off the bottom, and chop it up. Of course, I gotta have a bunch of cilantro to go with it, and then all the chopping is done. While the steak is slowly getting up to temperature, I want to start cooking on my shovel. However, as you can see, it's a bit hot. So I gotta create a little bit more space, a little lower temperature. I'm gonna move all the firewood to one side together with the embers. And thereby I'm toning down the temperatures. It's still gonna be hot, but it's just gonna be the difference between extremely hot, searing hot for steaks, and frying hot. Let's put some oil on the shovel, and then I'm gonna put my ingredients on. I'm going to start by putting in some chili flakes and frying it. Then I'm going to add the onions, the garlic, and a little bit of cilantro. I'm going to add a little bit more oil, and then we're just going to let this gently fry. The oil will mix in with the beef fat that's already in there from the steak. I'm going to sprinkle on a little bit of salt to season the chili oil. And then I'm going to place my steak on that oil. And that's the way I'll slowly cook my steak. Basically frying it in the chili oil, adding flavor to the steak while it's warming up. Don't forget to flip around that steak every now and then, making sure that it cooks evenly on all sides. The steak is almost up to temperature, and that means it's time for the next phase. I'm going to add some butter. And then on top of that butter, we're going to put some PitmasterX barbecue beef rub. Just sprinkle it all over that steak. It's going to be an additional seasoning. And let that infuse together with the butter onto the steak. Once the butter melted, it's time to flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. A little bit of butter and a little bit of that PitmasterX barbecue beef rub. If you want to make this, you're going to take 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of black pepper, a tablespoon of paprika powder, a tablespoon of onion powder, and half a tablespoon of garlic powder. Mix it all up, and that's how easy it is to make the beef rub. The steak is now at a core temperature of 52 degrees Celsius. It's time to take it off, but just appreciate for a moment how delicious this redneck steak looks. It's basically a spoon filled with flavor, and if it would fit in my mouth, I would eat it right away. Oh, there she is. Look at that. Now the trick is to not use the cutting board. This is how you serve it up. The whole thing. You did so much work cooking this steak. You're not going to be that guy that takes it off and then puts it on a plate. Let me show you how to do it properly. Take the steak off, put it on a cutting board. This is the rib eye cap and this is the eye. And in between there's this little layer of fat. But if you cut it up together, it looks a little less appetizing. And if you're going for presentation, you're going to cut up your steak a little thicker, and if you're going for enjoying a fine dining, you're going to cut your steak a little thinner. And especially if you do this table side, then you want to use a big butcher's knife from Forge like this, and it's definitely going to impress your guests. And then the rib cap gets served on the side because it's a special cut that tastes freaking delicious. And there you have it. This is the redneck steak, served properly, cut properly. Oh, I'm drooling so much, it's almost hard for me to talk. I'm really, really hungry. Oh. Oh, so juicy. It's not just a gimmick, it's not just a party hack. You get a beautiful crust, you get loads of flavor, and then when you dress it up and serve it up, it is really a showpiece. But underneath that steak, we have the real secret. This is almost like a chili oil, but then way, way better. Oh, that secretly is my favorite part. Oh, dip it in, get that garlic, that chili oil. Wow.